Good afternoon and welcome to the DFS Army YouTube channel. I am Razzle11 and you can find me on X at Razzle11Grinds. Going to take a look at the pitching for today, the 16th of May. It is a Friday. I had to double check for a second. We do have a 12-game main slate this evening. I don't think there's real weather concerns-ish for this slate. There's some talk about New York, Baltimore as well. Our weather station right here doesn't really have much to worry about. I do want to pay attention to the Baltimore weather a little bit more than what our weather station has from this morning or late last night. I do believe there is a chance for some delay at some point, so definitely want to pay attention to that because Mackenzie Gore in that game, to me, is very interesting. Given that the Orioles have struggled so much against left-handed pitching. But let's just jump in over at DraftKings. This is a reminder, this is a first look at the pitching options on the slate, and I will be looking at DraftKings as that is where a majority of my action is. If you do play on FanDuel, I'll cut my pool into a half, because you don't have to be as creative. Pricing isn't quite as tight. It allows you to get the stacks you want with an upper tier-ish pitcher. So with all that said, let's just jump into this 12-game main slate. Plenty of pitching options. I believe I counted it earlier. There were 7 pitchers with K-props of 6.5 or better. A very strong pitching slate. First matchup, I already touched on Mackenzie Gore, somebody that will be in my pool. He's given up a few more home runs recently. Some walks have crept up a little bit, but the strikeouts are still there. Baltimore, I did look at these numbers prior to starting this. Baltimore as a team has an ISO of 0.74 against left-handed pitching with an OPS of 511 on the season. A big thing that I noticed when I was looking at projected ownership is Mackenzie Gore at under 7.5%. As long as the weather holds out, that's a number I want to exploit personally. I want to jump up. Maybe 2 to 3x the field. The Orioles' offense has just been struggling, especially against left-handed pitching. I know they moved the fences back in left field, but still, I still think it's a good spot for some left-handed pitchers in that particular ballpark. I'm not really interested in Povich. I know he's a left-handed pitcher in that park, and he could certainly have a solid performance. He did kind of dominate this Washington squad 3 weeks ago or so. His best start of the season, that's something I really didn't realize, but we have so many pitchers on the slate that I just don't think I'm going to go with Povich. Maybe I get talked back into him as the day goes on. He's just not a huge K guy. He did strike out 8 to start the year, but since then it's been 5 or fewer. Really, it's been 4 or 2 in most starts. Just not something that really intrigues me. He hasn't thrown in 10 days, so that's interesting. But again, I think I'm going to pass on Povich, just because there's so many other pitchers that I think just have much greater ceilings. 2 names I did write down: Carlos Rodon, Tyler McGill. I think I'm going to end up on Rodon, but off of McGill. It's kind of tough. Rodon's K-props at 6.5 is basically a pick'em. McGill's at 5.5 as a pick'em as well. Rodon plus 140 to earn the W, while McGill is at plus 270. Pretty big difference. Rodon certainly volatile. Obviously, the A's got to him for a couple home runs, but he also struck out 10. He's just been really strong as a starting pitcher. Even when he had some rougher starts, still wasn't horrendous. It's obviously a difficult matchup, but still, I think I would prefer Rodon in this game. McGill hasn't been that sharp the last few starts. Strikeouts are starting to come back down. I don't really think he's a 7 to 10 strikeout kind of guy, but there's some strikeouts to be had in this matchup. It's just when I look at some of the names that I've written down with their props, I just don't think I'm going to end up on McGill just because we have so many options. If it was a smaller slate or a different pitching slate, McGill certainly would be in play even against the dangerous Yankee squad. Detroit Toronto, Francis giving up a few too many home runs. I like the Detroit bats a little bit in this one. Flaherty, recent starts, I believe he's had some rough starts of late. That's definitely a worry for me. Just don't like the recent trends. I think we've played him quite a bit so far this season, but it could be a spot where we end up off of him. He is plus 165 to earn the W, with Detroit being minus 118 favorites, but his K prop's at just 4.5 with juice on the over. Not the best K matchup for him. He does have, obviously, K upside. He struck the Padres out 9 times in 6 innings, and I believe they're still the toughest team in baseball to strike out. They are. So, Toronto is third, so that's that matchup that I don't really love. So I think I have to pass on Flaherty, even though I did write him down, just because the names I write down are names that I'm kind of interested to see what their props lean towards to get a better idea of what we're going to be doing. Atlanta-Boston, probably the top pitching matchup on the slate. Boston, a minus 115 favorite, but Chris Sale, K-prop is 7.5 juice on the over. Crochet's is just 6.5 with juice on the over. Crochet's plus 190 during the W, while Sale is plus 165, despite being a slight underdog. Crochet, obviously, super strong. I think might have more upside than Sale at this point, but it's close. Very similar pitchers. I mean, Crochet was viewed as the next Chris Sale coming up with the White Sox. Very interesting. I think Sale is a little more volatile because I do think the Boston lineup is a little more dangerous right now. The top half of that Atlanta lineup should be more dangerous than it has been. Game total in this one's just 8 juice on the under. Obviously one of the lowest totals. 2 of the best K props. In fact, Chris Sale is number 1. Crochet is tied for number 2. Both guys 100% in play. The fact that Chris Sale is $1,700 cheaper with a stronger K prop, better win odds, probably smarter to look that way, but I'm going to play both of them. The fact that Chris Sale is nearly twice as highly projected owned as Crochet is something that's very interesting to me to see. So that kind of means I might have to increase my Crochet exposure to get a little overweight on the field, just because I don't think there should be that big of a gap between these two, and it wouldn't shock me if they both come out and put up very similar performances. And if things go right, it can turn into, just like last night with DeGrom and Hunter Brown, a back and forth pitchers duel. Next matchup is Max Meyer and Taj Bradley. 2 guys that are definitely in play for me. Meyer, a little more volatile against Tampa Bay, a more difficult offense. He hasn't been throwing the ball well the last 3 starts after his dominating performance against Cincinnati. He just has the strikeout upside. The problem is Tampa Bay's lineup healthier. Josh Lowe returned. Yandy Diaz will be back after his passport issue. He's back this evening. I like Max Meyer quite a bit, but his K-prop's at 5.5 juices on the under. He's plus 220 to earn the W, despite Tampa Bay being just a minus 118 favorite. So the game line itself is pretty close, but Taj Bradley on the other side is plus 130 to earn the W, which is better than a Chris Sale, better than Carlos Rodon. It's very similar to Cole Reagan. It's better than Joe Ryan, who we'll get to in a little bit as well. I think Meyer's going to make my pool, but he might be one of the last guys that gets eliminated the more I look at the names that we have in front of us. With that said, Taj Bradley taking on a weak Miami lineup. K-prop of 5.5 is basically a pick'em. And like I mentioned, a plus 130 to earn the W. Those are pretty strong W odds. His K numbers have kind of disappeared, but he did limit the walks last time out. K's kind of rebounded a little bit. He might not have the true ceiling that like a Max Meyer does, but I just think it's a better spot for him. So I'm most likely going to end up on Bradley. And based on the names, probably out on Max Meyer, but he's in strong consideration. to be one of my 8 or so pitchers on this particular slate. St. Louis, Kansas City. Cole Reagan's against a team that doesn't strike out a ton. He's had some rough starts over his last 4, but he's obviously mixed in 4 double-digit strikeout performance over his last 7 starts. He just has so much upside that I think we just have to play him. He's tied with Crochet and Corbin Burns with K-props of 6.5 juice to the over, so it's tied at the second best. Plus 120 to earn the W, which I think is 4th on this slate. Tied for 4th. Just because we have a couple massive favorites that are actually minus money to earn the W later on in the slate. But I think Reagan's is in play. It's a good ballpark for pitching. Overall, St. Louis lineup is so-so. I do think that they don't strike out enough. So there is some worry there, but their strikeouts jump when they're on the road. About a 2 strikeout difference home to road. So obviously something to take into consideration. And I think Reagan's just offers plenty of upside that I think we just have to roll with them. Houston and Texas, I am not using the colors. I don't know if he's right or if he's just super rusty or what. Just not good. Avaldi, definitely somebody who's throwing the ball extremely well. Impossible to ignore that. Some of the Houston bats do have some pretty solid history against him. But his K-props at 5.5 juice on the over. It's a minus 185 favorite. He's plus 105 to earn the W, which is the 3rd best odds on this particular slate. That price tag, obviously a little rough to swallow. I don't think he can match the upside at the top price points. But if those guys that are expensive up there don't hit ceiling type performances, Crochet, Rodon, etc., Avaldi could certainly be the highest raw point scorer on the slate, and I would not be shocked. Maybe a little surprised given all the names, but it's definitely not shocking to think about. Next matchup, Joe Ryan, Chad Patrick. I wrote both games down. I just don't think I'm going to end up with Patrick in my pool. Total in this game, 7.5. Juice to the over, but it's still the 2nd lowest total on the slate. Joe Ryan's K-props at 6.5, juice to the under, which puts him like 4th or 5th. He's plus 135 to earn the W, which puts him just a little behind Reagan's, right behind Bradley. He's been throwing the ball exceptionally well. The Brewers' offense has kind of struggled a little bit, top to bottom. I think Joe Ryan is definitely in play. Patrick, somebody that I'm going to consider just because the Twins lineup could and most likely be weakened without Buxton or Correa. So he's going to be in consideration. I just don't think he's going to make it. His K-prop's 4.5, juice on the over, but he's plus 270 to earn the W, despite Minnesota only being a minus 115 favorite. So I just don't think I'm going to end up there, but there are going to be people that end up on him, and it'll make sense. Corbin Burns, one of the chalkier pitchers on this slate for sure. We have him projected about 24% owned. Just an elite spot. We're picking on the Rockies. The D-backs are minus 410 favorites. He's minus 145 there in the W. K-prop is 6.5 juices on the over. Not much needs to be said there. San Diego game, I'm considering Kolek the way he's looked in his first 2 starts. Coming off of a complete game shutout, I do worry about some regression coming in this start. He is plus 130 during the W, which is pretty strong, but his K-prop's 4.5 juices on the under. Kolek could be the last man in, but I wouldn't be shocked if he ends up outside of my pool. May, we're going to pick on the Angels. They're striking out the most in baseball. May, not a huge K guy, but still, he can show flashes of K ability. So we're just going to pick on the Angels. They do have some power, so that is a worry. Last guy, I don't think I'm going to get to JP Sears in this last matchup, but Logan Webb, pitching at home, always in play for me. K-prop of 5.5 juice on the over. The minus 205 favorites, and he's plus 120 to earn the W. So him pitching at home, always steady. Obviously a little pricey, but there we have it. There's the first look at pitching options. If you enjoy what I bring to you, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, turn the notification bell on. Get the alert anytime we drop videos here at TFS Army. If you want to join us, get access to our coaches, tools, sheets, Discord, etc. Links will be in the description below. You can use promo code RAZ, that's R-A-Z, for 10% off monthly. And as always, best of luck, everybody.